Hey, how's it going? All right, so today we're gonna cover a bunch of stuff. We're gonna get into how do you pick materials for your packaging. So if you're designing packaging, how do you know what materials? Is it gonna be cardboard? Is it gonna be corrugated, fiberboard, paper? There's so many different options out there. Let's get into how we do it. But before that, we're gonna go ahead and cover what we talked about last week. So last week, if you watch week one, that was like what is packaging? Went through a bunch of different types of packaging, right? We talked about bags. We talked about bags. We talked about cans. These guys from Canovation, they do this can that comes off like that, which was pretty cool. We talked about bottles, so glass. We talked about stand-up pouches. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of define packaging. People even define packaging as labels. I don't, but some people do. But now that we kind of covered that, if you want to do that, go ahead and watch the video from last week to get started. You can hear my dogs in the background. But this week, we're just going to get into how to pick materials for packaging. This is a big part of packaging design. All right, so let's do it. All right, so anytime I'm designing packaging, the first thing I want to get through is just the big idea. What am I trying to communicate to the consumer? And then think about everybody else that's in line in that packaging conversation, right? The manufacturer. So I got to think about availability. What materials are available where I am manufacturing, right? Do I need to import materials from another country, another city into the place where I'm manufacturing it? What do those costs look like? Then I also have to think about where is it going to be fulfilled? Is it fulfilled near where the product is being made? Is it going into a retail store? Is it for D2C? All these things play into the materials that we pick because we have to think about strength, availability, cost. And cost isn't just the cost of the material, it's cost of shipping the raw material to the production facility where they're going to print it, cut it, assemble it. Also, once that's completed, they've got to ship it to a distribution center where they're going to pack it out, a fulfillment center where they'll pack it out, maybe then go to a distribution center where they're going to ship it out. All those costs add up. And it's part of the packaging COGS, right? These are the cost of goods for the packaging. So it's really important to kind of think about all those things. It's why you see a lot of it's why you see a lot of stand-up pouches right now. When you go to the grocery store, everything's in a stand-up pouch because it can hold a good amount of volume, but before it gets to the fulfillment center, these things are flat. They're super thin, but they're also heavy enough to support the product without tearing. So it's a cheap way to pack your products, not just at production and the material being cheap, but then also like through the fulfillment center, through the shipping, all those things come into play. It's why so many people use that material. It's why we're having such a big issue with single-use plastic. So let's get into this. If you got any questions, go ahead and throw them up in the comments. This is a really, really quick episode. They're all pretty quick, so it's like a quick 15 minutes. We got Taz here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So, any comments you've got, go ahead and throw them in here. So let's get started. So if we're looking at materials, this is a brand over in Finland. It's a jewelry brand. You're spending about $100 to $200 on a pair of earrings, right? So it's not super luxe, but it's also not like Claire's, right? You're not spending $3 or $4 on a pair of earrings. So what they've done, is a rigid board, right? So this rigid board here, it's wrapped in paper. So you got it just like a nice paper. You can hear this, that tooth in there. This is probably what's called a white craft paper. It probably contains a good amount of recycled material. On the back here, yep. So on the back here, you've got your FSC logo. It says mixed. So mixed is going to be recycled material and virgin fiber. Then it's wrapped, right? So it feels pretty solid. But then they have an inexpensive insert. They haven't printed the bottom because there's no reason. You're covering it with an insert, and that's an extra cost, right? Because the cost is huge. And you've got a foam insert, which isn't the greatest, but it's a cheap solution. Cost is really important when you're looking at your packaging. Then you've got this black board that has a green cover on it, and this is just folding board, right? So folding board is what you would see in um, like these types of boxes. Right? This is a folding board box. It's an inexpensive way to print, die cut, assemble, and have a box, have a pack. I show this because this was one of my favorite brands to work with. The team over at Benefit was so much fun. Um, and that was a big thing, was cost. So some product was designed and packed in folding board, some was in rigid, some was in glass, some was in plastic. It really kind of depends on the material and cost. So if you're a jewelry brand, this is a great solution. Folding board, great solution for inserts. You can really create a lot of cool structures with this. And folding board can replace foam in a lot of instances. It's just a matter of engineering, right? So those are two different materials. We've looked at rigid board and folding board. Then, as an example, something that I received here in the mail. So like this Amex box, this shipped just like this. This is a mailer. So the way that this thing ships, it's about strength. So if you're a D2C brand, this is kind of a way to think about it. Because it's not super tall, you don't have to worry about crushing as much. If this was a lot taller, this board would probably not be sufficient. This looks like actually, no, this is actually pretty good. I'm looking at the inside here. You can see in this reflection, there's little lines that are going across, right? That's the fluting. And when it comes to fluting, that means that this is a corrugated board. Then there's different types of, I don't even know where I'm pointing over here. There's different types of flutes. There's a micro flute, which is like an F flute. It's really thin. It's what you would see inserts made out of for, let's say, perfume, right? So if you open a box and then you've got a wrapped corrugated that goes around the bottle to protect it, it's probably going to be an F flute. Then an E flute. E flute is really strong. E flute is about 1/8 of an inch thick. And that's a great solution for mailers. This here, I'm estimating, is about an E flute, and it's got an extra heavy board on the outside. So probably maybe like a 250 GSM paper on the outside, gives it nice strength, but it's corrugated. Then they've laminated this little envelope to the inside of the pack. The reason for this is when you're designing packaging, you want to tell a story through the pack. So on the outside, obviously, this is addressed to me. There's no better way to travel. The weird part is I've got to tear it here. And when I do, then you've got like this little messaging under here that's hidden behind it. So that's a cool way to do it anytime there's a tear strip. But the weird part is it says there's no way to travel. And then I turn it around, I tear it here. But now when I go to open it, I've got to open it in this fashion, which means all the messaging is upside down. There's always a debate of how do you want to open the pack versus how do you want to image it? Do you want it to be right reading when you open it, or do you want it to be right reading when you're holding it? Sometimes you can do both and it's fine. Other times there's always a debate. So figure that out for yourself. Then when you open the box, you've got messaging, right? You're introducing the person into the pack. This is a folding board, kind of like what we talked about. And then they've got this panel here that holds the card. This is a folding board and it's been doubled over, so it's twice as thick. It's probably the same board as what this is because you want to kind of gang everything up together. They're probably running this and this on the same press at the same exact time and then just cutting it into two different pieces. It's all a matter of cost savings. Then they have a ribbon that's attached to the bottom. There's this insert you can see here that holds the guide and the information on the inside. So you pull that stuff up. But this panel is actually part of this. So this board goes across, comes up, folds over, has a die cut for the card. All one piece. And then you've got this piece, which is separate, but it's all cut on the same sheet. So again, determining what materials to use. This is a great way to use an E-flute mailer and then a folding card for internal components. This is probably like a 300 GSM board here, and it's got a soft touch, which is looks like it's a film lamination and not just a coating. So that's an added amount of strength that's happening there. So if you're a D2C brand shipping small products, this is a good solution, right? Now the weird part is you never see rigid board boxes in the mail. Everything comes in corrugated, whether it's an E flute or a B flute, or if you're shipping electronics, it's like a B and an E or a B and a C, which is like 2 layers, gets super, super, super thick. But I just got this from the team over at Taxi Studio, which is coming all the way from the UK, all the way to Arizona. Look at that. It's even slick. But this thing here is actually shipped. It's a book, but it's actually shipped, as you can see, in a rigid box. So this rigid box, 2-piece, lid goes all the way to the bottom, holds the book. They've got their branded tape that just goes, two strips, and they just drop this in the mail, and it made it here. And all corners are intact, nothing burst, nothing split, everything looks good. And as a consumer, I just cut these two, and whether they meant for it to or not, it opens up like a hinge. So this is a really cool way to do product as well. In the US, we're really critical on shipping things via mail. So we like to over-engineer everything. We like to go right for the corrugated. Again, you rarely ever see anything like this in the mail, but you can see it worked well. And not only did it work well, it came all the way from another country to the US, not just like New York, which is right across the pond. It's all the way to Arizona, across the entire country. And it looks great. So could you do rigid board for D2C mailing? Absolutely. It's not going to get certified by anybody, ISTA or anything like that, because this wouldn't pass those tests where they actually put compression on it and rate it based on different weights. The amount of compression they put on here will burst it no matter what, because that's kind of the purpose of the test, is to see how far they can push it. And that's why you get over-engineered packaging a lot of the times. Then for like bottles, like I got this bottle in the mail. So this is a molded fiber. Why would I pick a molded fiber? If I want something that's going to protect my product, be recyclable, but then also be cheap. Molded fiber inserts are inexpensive. The most costly part of this is the mold. So there are companies that sell stock molded fiber for stock products. So for this bottle here from Mika Mix, which is awesome. I definitely recommend you guys try this. This is a stock shipper. Right? This bottle actually doesn't, it fits in here, but there's a lot of play. This is actually meant for a larger bottle. But once you put it in here, there's movement in there, but it's not going to break. So definitely another way to kind of consider your packaging. Like, what kind of materials would I pick? And of course, you have to consider the user. What's the user want? What are they looking for? Are they, is this a high-end product? If it is, maybe looking at this Taxi Studios style makes a lot of sense, right? Because it feels luxe. I can do a texture on here. I can do stamping and debossing on the outside of this thing and make it feel really, really nice. The other thing is, as an example, the team over at IDP Direct, which reminds me, give me a second. We got to pay the bills here. All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. All right, so go check them out. It's idpdirect.com. You can download the sustainability guides, which are pretty awesome. So with that team, using an E-flute corrugate, we were able to stamp, trying to figure where to point here. So deboss texture in there. You can see the lines happening on the corrugated, but with an E-flute, you won't see as big of lines and they won't be as dramatic as they are on a B-flute, which is what you typically see. Right, so this is a B-flute box, and you can see these lines, right? They're so pronounced that they pick up dirt and they create this like tiger stripe effect. Nobody likes that. So with this board here from the team over at IDP Direct, it's an E flute. The flute's a lot closer. You will see a little bit of those lines, but they're not so drastic and dramatic. And then you can actually deboss. So this deboss is insanely deep and crisp, but you don't see it on the inside of the box, which is really nice. And then when you open up that box, for example, inside of that, there's a rigid box, right? So how would I do this if I was a fashion brand, if I was a cosmetics brand? Um, there's a lot. If I was a cleaning brand, like let's say like Blue Land, you can create these inserts that are out of corrugated and then put your product in there. Now, how do you do that to make sure that everything fits? It's all engineering, but we're talking about material selection, right? So the reason the rigid board, the corrugated, the folding board makes sense is it's all recyclable. And if you make an entire ecom box or you make an entire product pack system out of the same materials, it's all monomaterial and it can all be recycled at the same time. If you start introducing things like, corrugated with, stand-up pouches that have plastic and aluminum and different layers in there, then you're not gonna be able to recycle things together. The other thing is like in that kit, in that box, and I think I've got one here. So inside of that box, there's actually a fabric tote, because totes are packaging also. It's like a reusable way to communicate your brand. So here's this, right? So here's this, and this is actually an early version, but you can see the stamping here. You can definitely feel it. There's an all over texture. All over textures don't get enough use in packaging. It's a way that you can communicate your brand through touch. People are going to hold and touch your product. So as soon as they touch this, it doesn't feel like an e-com mailer, right? Then you've got some branding that's happening here. We open it, how can you break the experience from the outside? So if it's a brown box, if it's a white box, adding color to the inside is a great way to do that, right? Because then what happens is all of a sudden, you're in your kitchen, you got dirty dishes, you got whatever, you open this up on the counter, this outside probably gonna be dirty from e-com shipping, just distribution. When you open it, it's bright and clean. This is actually an old version, a previous version. But then when you lift this up, let's say in different states in the US. So for example, if I'm ordering products to my office in New York, that's kind of the way that it works. I won't ship products to my house because it'll sit in front of my apartment all day while I'm working and it'll probably be gone by the time I get home. So I'm going to ship products to my office. It'll show up. Now I got to carry this home. So a way to do that is to then create some kind of an insert that holds a paper bag that I can then place my box into and carry that home. So we've got a paper bag. These are paper knitted handles. So this entire bag can go into the recycling system. This box that goes in this bag can go into the recycling system. And this entire shipping component can go in there. Now it feels like there's a lot of packaging here. And I'll be the first to admit that that is more packaging than you should typically do on e-com systems. But it's there to show everything that's possible, right? And then for the brand to be able to pick and choose different things. So there's a lot of materials that are shown in there. And if you want one, reach out to the team over at IDP Direct. Go to idpdirect.com, go to their contact page, say, hey, I want a kit, and maybe somebody will send something to you. Then there's also like a lot of material innovation. So if somebody was, for example, handing you a top secret note, right? Like this one here, right? So if somebody sent me this note, it's top secret. I don't want anybody else to see it. I can take this material and just drop it in to water. And this stuff, as I'm talking, is dissolving and it's turning into nothing. It's going completely away. Message and everything, right? This stuff is from a team over at SmartSolve. This comes as labels, right? So if you've got a glass bottle, if you've got something that can, like this jar here, for example, this is a jelly jar that I use for my glasses. I have like a whole set of like 30 of these at this point. But I just throw it into my dishwasher. The paper comes off, but I have to peel the paper off the bottom of the dishwasher. But if it was in this material, this would just go down the pipes, go down the plumbing, completely safe to do that. But look, it's gone, right? So what else can you do with that stuff? Can you make you can make labels? Can you make little pouches, like say those pouches that you get a cookie in, like the little wax merch bags? You have to kind of think like, what else can I do with these materials? And there's a ton of crazy materials out there. Last one I'll show you here is this is from my friends over at Womy. Womy, Woamy. This stuff is insane. This is a great replacement for EPS foam. You get compression, but if I turn it this way, it's a lot more rigid. It's like corrugated, and this recycles with paper. This is actually paper. It comes in different thicknesses, different fluting. You kind of see this. Look at that. It's great compression. And then you've got something that's rigid. Why is this such an innovation? Because it recycles with paper. Why else is this such a killer innovation? Because it doesn't dust. So why does that matter? If you're an electronics brand, the biggest issue is dusting. So if you get a new phone, if you get a new speaker, there's always some kind of a plastic wrap around the product, and the reason for that is reduce scratching and dusting. If they've got like if there's a molded fiber insert like the one we saw for Mick and Mix, that's going to create dust as it ships, and then when you open the product, you're going to have dust over the top of it. We like our products to be perfectly clean and shiny, like nobody's ever touched them before. This is going to help you do that. It's going to eliminate any kind of dusting that's happening there. So definitely check them out. It's Womy, Woamy. And what we'll do is we're going to wrap up here. Next week, we'll get into the next steps. So we've gone over what is packaging, what kind of materials are there, how to use those. We're going to get into printing, techniques, limitations, and we'll start talking about actually designing packaging. If you've got any products out there that you need packaged, do me a favor, throw them in the comments, and we'll start using those as examples of how to design. So for you, it's a great way to get some free concepts. For everybody else, it's a great way to see the process and how actually to design packaging. Do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I think there's a bell up here. Everybody always says ring the bell. I don't know what that means. But do that, leave a comment, and then do me a favor, head over to packagingunbox.com and leave me a review. Let me know if this is boring, if this is interesting, if you're learning, if you're not, if you want to learn something different, all that stuff. Let me know. Looking forward to it. Thank you guys for joining me. See you guys later.